handle the truth.
Well, the liberal fantasy goes up in flames. The walls are closing in on Donald Trump. Until they aren't.
Donald Trump feels the walls closing in.
I think this is a guy who feels like the walls are closing in.
The walls are closing in on him?
Because the walls are closing in.
The walls are closing in on the president.
Now the walls appear to be closing in.
Really kind of the walls closing in on him.
The walls are closing in because the walls are indeed closing in.
I think at this point, the walls are spinning.
The legal walls are closing in.
The walls are closing in on President Trump.
The walls, meanwhile, are closing in on the President of the United States.
The walls closing in on President Donald Trump.
It appears that the walls are closing in on this president.
It feels that the walls are closing in on him.
The walls closing in on him.
The walls are closing in.
And the walls are closing in on...
That the walls are closing in on the president.
Are the walls closing in?
The walls are closing in on the presidency.
It says as the walls begin to close around him. The political walls closing in on him.
This is a president that feels the walls closing in.
The walls are closing in on Donald Trump.
I think the walls are finally closing in.
The walls.
The walls.
The walls.
The walls.
Walls and the walls.
The walls. The walls.
The walls.
Walls
are closing.
Closing in.
Closing.
Closing in.
Closing in. Closing in on.
It's closing in.
The walls are closing in
on President Donald Trump.
He's not looking forward to any of it. He's horrified. He's just talking big. The walls are closing in, as has been said before.
Boy, they had him this time. The hush money to Stormy Daniels. Obviously, he paid out this money using campaign funds. It was a misappropriation. It was this. It was that. Nancy Botox Pelosi.
I know it's above the law, except me and my husband with our insider trading. But Donald Trump is not above the law.
Hillary Rodham Clinton is apparently above the law. I mean, she can use campaign money to finance a phony dossier which led to an investigation, impeachment charges, hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars spent looking into investigating, etc., 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 and finally, she paid a little fine. Now, did Donald Trump have an entanglement? Isn't that the new word, Will and Jada? Entanglement. Did Donald Trump have an entanglement with Stormy Daniels? He maintains absolutely not. She did say no until an attorney by the name of Michael Avenatti basically said, you know, there could be some money in this for you. And then all of a sudden it was, yeah, we had a thing. Michael Cohen is the disbarred, discredited, lying lawyer who claims that he was directed by Donald Trump to pay Stormy Daniels $130,000 for an alleged affair in 2007 so that she would shut her mouth. A non-disclosure statement. They happen every day of the week, especially to the rich and famous. And most of the time, they would just rather pay somebody, leave me alone, rather than drag it out for years in the courts, spend time, spend money, and constantly having their name dragged through the press. So I am sure through the years that Donald Trump, as well as thousands of other people in this country, have paid off these kind of claims and gone on with their lives. This is not new to anyone who is a Trump supporter. This was not a bombshell. But here you go. The DA, which I like how Dan Bongino refers to him as Twinkies. There's an old saying that you can indict a ham sandwich because, see, you don't need to provide any defense. The jury doesn't get to, quote, hear the other side. They are presented with a murder scene. And maybe there's a guy that they caught on camera just standing next to the murder scene. We think this is the guy that did it. We've got evidence. We want to look into it. We want this to go to trial. And a grand jury says, okay. Now, just maybe the guy standing there was sent there by the police department to clean it up. So there's, indicting a ham sandwich apparently is not a hard thing to do, but this DA, Bragg, who bragged about when he was running for the district attorney's office, funded by George Soros, that he was going to get Donald Trump. And you talk about premature elation. On Wednesday, the grand jury disbanded, and Bragg's office didn't want to talk about it. On Thursday, they did not meet. On Friday, they don't meet, which means he couldn't indict the ham sandwich. In fact, one reporter said, Donald Trump's not only a ham sandwich, he's a Big Mac. And they couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. And I don't know how this works. I don't know if they have to keep them there like forever. Oh, so you still don't think there's enough money to take this to a trial? Well, you know what? We'll give you another 24 hours to think it over. Another 24 hours to think it over. I mean, at any point, do these people actually get to go home and this is over? Or are they made to stay there until they get the indictment they want? We have exculpatory evidence that the grand jury is not privy to. We know for a fact that Michael Cohen wrote a letter to the FEC, which the FEC has provided copies of, that Michael Cohen in writing said, I paid Stormy Daniels out of my own personal checking account, and neither Donald Trump or the Trump organization had any involvement or were even aware that the transaction was done. I did it to make her go away. Even if that's not true, that Donald Trump did know about it, it does prove Donald Trump is smarter than Cohen, because Cohen put it in writing. He swore that out as a legal binding statement. Did he commit perjury? Which time did he commit perjury? There are other people who have witnessed Michael Cohen under oath or while being, shall we say, interviewed, giving his side of events. He kept saying repeatedly, I cannot go to prison. I will say whatever it takes. I cannot go to prison. So this case is obliterated. Twinkie, I like that name. Twinkie apparently doesn't even have what it takes to get a ham sandwich indicted. And this is blowing up on the Democrats in a big way. It's blowing up on Ron DeSantis, who with his little backhanded comment a couple of days ago, I wouldn't know anything about paying hookers. Oh, see, you really shouldn't have said that, Ron. One, ask Marco Rubio how that worked out for him when he wanted to go into a back and forth with Donald Trump. Ask him how that worked out. Donald Trump lives for this. This has been Donald Trump's stock and trade literally for decades. He's good at it. Ask all of his 2016 challengers how it worked out for him when they decided to go mano-a-mano with Donald Trump. He's not afraid to throw a punch. That's just how he is. And for those who think, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis used to be friends, I'm a big baseball fan. And I've been rewatching the documentary series Baseball that Ken Burns did several years ago for PBS. It's not great. It's very good. It's not great. Some of it's, it's skewed politically based on Ken Burns' political ideology, and why they interview nothing but a bunch of, liberal historians and academics is beyond me. But one of the most feared pitchers in all of baseball was Don Gibson. I mean, Don Gibson was hard as nails. He could pitch the lights out, and he was not afraid to throw at your head and back you off the plate. And Don Gibson's former roommate, when they were playing on the same team, said that when he came up against Don after he got traded to another team, very first pitch, threw at his head, rushed him off the plate, knocked him to the ground. And his friend said, that was Don's way of telling me we're not roommates anymore. Well, Mr. DeSantis, you and Trump, you're not roommates anymore. And you don't have what it takes. And your problem is you've got some never-Trumpers chirping in your ear. You've got Rupert Murdoch chirping in your ear. You know, that flip side of George Soros. That's exactly what I think of Rupert Murdoch. And the clown show over at Faux Pas News, formerly known as Fox News. They're just controlled opposition. That's all they are. Trump raised $1.5 million over the past week. $1.5 million. He has been saying for years, these witch hunts, they keep coming after him, and they keep coming up short. And it just keeps empowering him. And Donald Trump is surging in the polls. His name is everywhere again. He is all over the media. He is sucking the oxygen out of the room again. But the walls are closing in. Now, get ready. Trump 24, the train is picking up speed.